our topic today, the topic that we begin is Africa as the origin of major religions. Africa as the origin of major religions. Our first topic was Africa, the origin of humanity. Our second topic is supposed to be Africa as the origin of major religions. And this is why we say that any religion that did not have its origin or inspiration from Africa did not become a major world religion. If a religion didn't have its origin in Africa, it did not have a major religion. It did not become a major world religion. So only those religions that have their base in Africa or their inspiration from Africa really became major world religion. And the explanation is simple. African people for almost 5 million years developed a philosophy. And that philosophy we have seen that is based on pacifism, worship of the Creator, worship of a king God, earthly God is also a God that lives on, goes to earth, resolves dispute, communal living, and the philosophy of I am because we are, and because we are, therefore I am. So the philosophy that is developed around the Nile Valley, later is detrified to become major world religion. Now, I must say to you here that religion is a detrification of a people's culture. Religion is a detrification of a people's culture. You turn your culture and your philosophy into a deity. Religion comes out of a culture and philosophy. It's not the other way around. Culture precedes religion. Philosophy precedes the religion. It's not religion comes and then introduces the philosophy. No. By the time religion comes together, there is already culture and there is already a philosophy. So that now gives rise, that culture, that religion gives rise, that culture and that philosophy gives rise to a religion. So therefore, if you are looking at major Western religions, they will all have their roots and they all have their background on the Nile Valley. They have their roots and their background on the Nile Valley. And the themes from the Nile Valley will be prevalent in the culture. For example, the Nile Valley is on the equator. The Nile Valley is on the equator. So most of the religions will have the sun somewhere because the Nile Valley is on the equator. The Nile Valley has a water system. So most of the religions will have water in them because of where their philosophy comes from, the Nile Valley. The Nile Valley had developed a method. Most of the people moved from the Nile Valley, traveled around the Nile to settle in present-day Ethiopia, to settle in present-day Egypt, and to settle in Northeast Africa, what they call the Middle East. So in traveling, most of these people carried food. They carried food like, we talked about alcohol among the Iteso, which is potable. But one of the most food they carried, mobile food, was cows, cattle, animals, domesticated animals. Once the African had domesticated animals, then you could have walking food. A cow is a walking food. A goat is a walking food. A chicken is a walking food. Food that actually moves itself, so you don't have to struggle with it. So, no doubt, most of the religions of the world will have cows in them. Why? Because the philosophy, the people who started these religions, who evolved, who speak to God, who become prophets, come from a culture that has cows. So it will have cows, it will have shepherds. So when you meet shepherds, you should know, that it is because of the Nile Valley. Now, again, in these cultures, they have zoo types, animals. They have developed totems around animals. For example, in Uganda, you have a Bogo, a lion, a chima, the muscular, the one chima, the one Bogo. These are zoo types. So when religion of Egypt, and you say falcon, a man with a dog's head, you say hippopotamus, that is still the system of religion that develops around the Nile Valley. You know, because there were animals on the Nile Valley. There were a lot of animals on the Nile Valley. There were giraffes, there were buffaloes, and then people in the Nile Valley spoke or claimed to speak to animals. Understand that. I am sure your grandfather told you, in Nyankore they say, Wakame, Akajenga yari wawa Jojo, Akabar hoa Chunchu. You know, I'm sure you have such stories in all your language, of Wakame, Warshojo. You know, and then these elephants would actually speak. You know, they would speak. Sometimes the people would speak to the elephant, or sometimes the elephants would speak to themselves. Sometimes people would speak to the rabbit. Mwana bubi, na bubi ya simba mumutimu wangu, enkuwa ya tonya na bubi ya nyagwa. Na bubi speaks in Uganda. Na bubi does what? He assists Chintu to go to heaven. So Chintu goes to Nabubi and says, my friend, what is happening? I need to go to heaven, my wife is missing. No, my car is missing, I don't know how to get there. Nabubi says, don't worry, I am going to make a stairway to heaven. So, when you meet now in any religious philosophy, stairway to heaven, somebody claims to climb into heaven, it is all from the Nile Valley. You know, it is, there is in philosophy something called proximity to the truth. Proximity to the truth. You've got to understand this. If I am teaching here now, you report that, you know, Kihura Nkuba is teaching at UBC. Because you are closer, you know that I'm teaching, how many people, how my method, and everything. But now, if you move away from the center of the happening, and you are reporting from Ruero, the story changes. You know, it is not I'm teaching, it's maybe I'm broadcasting, or I am working, or whatever. Then as you move away and get to Guru, the story again changes. The story gets truer as you get closer to the truth. The story gets mythological as you move away from the truth. That is a proximity to the truth. You need to understand this. So, for example, in the story of Chintu and his cow, you will find that when Chintu goes to heaven and he's given food, who assists Chintu to get rid of food? The rat. The rat comes and says, Chintu, I'm going to help you. Please. You know, you don't have to eat all this food, you are going to be constipated, or you are going to burst. So, in African traditional stories, in African philosophy, people did speak to animals, and animals were completely represented in African philosophy or in African religion. For example, if I say, for you who are Banyangolian, I say, sharp, sharp, nyabwenje, no bwenje bwe. How do you have to answer that? Nyabwenje no bwenje. Anybody from Western Uganda? Nyabwenje no bwenje.
Nenzoka kugenda tine maguru.
Enzoka kutemba etakwatirire ningezoka kugenda tine maguru. It means wisdom has got his own wisdom. What is the answer? The answer is a snake walking without what? Without legs. Or a snake climbing without holding on to anything. That is wisdom. So in traditional African story, a snake represents what? It represents wisdom. Okay, explain that. Please stand.
That's what I
No, explain in traditional African story. Give a reference that shows that Satan is represented in traditional African story.
For example,
no, don't begin an explanation by an example.
I'll tell you.
Okay. I am saying in traditional African stories, a snake in Angola. You are from Angola.
I'm from Chigesi.
You are from Chigesi. Okay. But you have the same Mineb Shakus. Nyabwenje no Benje. How do you answer that? So you don't know tradition.
I know some.
Eh?
I know some.
Okay, where is it Shakus?
Shasta.
Shakus. So you don't know tradition. So please, I have already explained, unless you want to dispute, that the word Satan comes from ancient Egypt. It is a person called Seth, a personality called Seth, and he lived in a place called Ani, and therefore was called Satan. That is the explanation. Unless you come out with something older than Egypt and show us that it existed before Seth. But in Ankole, a snake is shown as wise. I am sure you'll find the same in Uganda, and they say because it represents wisdom. The snake also represents regeneration, because the snake, sheds its skin and is reborn. And it is actually most dangerous when the snake has shed its skin. So the character of the snake, when you are meeting it later on in other world religion, just know it also comes from where? From the Nile Valley. So you will meet a snake, for example, representing wisdom, telling in the Bible Adam and Eve that God deceived him. If you eat the fruit, you will see wisdom. But the snake was already here as wise, and it is also replicated in the Bible as some wise person who even says to Adam and Eve that God has deceived. So Africa as the origin of major Western religion looks first at the high technical religion developed in Egypt, which we have gone through, and represented particularly by the book of coming forth by day and by night. Look, this is from the tomb of Unas. Unas, U-N-A-S. He was a pharaoh of about 3,200 BC. This is before Moses in the Bible. It's before the Dhammapada, the Greek Veda. But here, you see the snake. This is the river. Where you are crossing into what they call the Sea of Reeds. And who is carrying the people? And who has the eye of wisdom? It is the snake. The snake carries you through the river of darkness and takes you into the Sea of Reeds, hands you over to a boatman, who then tells you who asks you different questions that you are supposed to answer before you go in the Sea of Reeds. By the way, in the Egyptian heaven, after passing judgment, when I showed you the judgment scene, after passing judgment and you are admitted in the presence of God, you are taken to the Garden of Reeds, or the beautiful garden. It was called the Garden of Reeds. Now, in this Garden of Reeds, or in heaven, you are also supposed to do some work. But because you have lived on earth, you have struggled, you have done all this, so you are not really supposed to get a hoe and then start struggling and start digging. So they created something called the Shabit. Shabit. Some of the names are called Sabit. You know names? Like, have you got Sabit in Uganda? Sabit, I think it's in Uganda. Sabit. Shabit. What the Shabit was, it was like a robot. So it was like a man or woman, but it did the work. Whatever you wanted it to do, it did. So that you live in heaven or in this Garden of Reeds, but you don't need to do a lot of work because there was a Shabit to do it for you. Now, the whole of this area was called Northeast Africa. Northeast Africa. It was part of Africa. Sometimes Africa was called Asia Major, and this part was called Asia Minor. But in ancient time, it was all part of Africa, and you didn't have to go to cross a desert to go there or to cross anything. You walked through here to go to that part of the world. So, it is not surprising that the first people that would receive the philosophy of ancient Egyptian religion would be people around So today, we look at one of the religions that springs out of Africa, and that is Christianity. Christianity is a religion of the followers of a man who later became Jesus Christ. But before Christ, Christianity was a religion that followed the law of Moses. And that law is called Torah. Torah. T-O-R-A, and they put a H at the end. But we have got that word in Runyankole. Torah. What does it mean? Who knows? In Runyankole, what does Torah mean? Torah? To give. To give. If you are saying, take this, you give. So, in Hebrew, it is the same thing. It means one who got or one who gives. The law of Moses. Yeah. So, now, the book of Moses is supposed to have written 5 books. And those books are known as the Pentateuch. Pentateuch. 5 books. And those principally concern the law, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, I think Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Pentateuch. But let me first summarize for you the religion of the Hebrews and the religion of Christianity. This is the story. The story says there is a God, a supreme God, and he lives in eternity. He creates himself. God creates himself and lives alone, almost with his angels. And then he decides, one time, getting bored, so he decides to create the world out of nothing. By world, I think we mean earth. Because when you read the book, it says in the beginning, the Spirit of the Lord was walking on water. Yeah? So somebody, and darkness covered the whole world, I think something like that. So somebody had created darkness, or somebody had created the water. Now, in ancient Egyptian concept, there was something called the Nun, which was a primordial matter, and it was this that the god Ra used to create the world. But in the religion of the Hebrews, of Moses and Christianity, God then decides that he should create the world. And he creates man and woman. No, he creates everything in 5 days, including men and women. And then he gets tired and he rests. Now, people he created then failed to listen to him or to do his will. Oh, he gave them a set of laws which they were supposed to obey, 10 commandments. And then the people failed to listen to him. And then out of the people that he had created, he chooses, according to the Bible, a small group of people whom he calls his own children. And after spending some time in Egypt as slaves, they are then taken into Judea and even land that didn't belong to them. And then God watches and protects them. And they go through trials and tribulations, but they refuse to listen to God. Then eventually God decides to send his only son, whom he engenders without a wife, to sacrifice to the people on earth, so that they can see that God loves them, and then he can fight the eternal enemy, Satan, who, by the way, was an angel who lived in heaven, and we don't know why, but they developed a conflict with God, They fight a long battle that lasts several days. And Satan decides to leave the heaven, or he's kicked out of heaven, and the third of the angels go with him. Now, God sends his son, Jesus, through some mysterious and controversial birth, because Mary somehow becomes pregnant, although he has got an earthly husband, called Joseph, who the Bible is not quite sure about who the father of Joseph was, because one gospel says Joseph's father was a different name and traces him up to David. Another says he was a different name and traces him up to Adam. But anyway, Jesus is then killed by people who didn't believe in him, in the support of the Romans. And then, after 1 day and a half, he resurrects, although nobody sees him coming from the dead. But his followers attest that he has really risen. And after a couple of weeks, he goes to heaven to sit on the right hand of his Father. Now his followers begin immediately a dispute as to what he had said and how they should conduct themselves. Religion splits into several parts, but principally around several beliefs. One saying Jesus was not God, he was just the Son of God. Another one saying no, Jesus was God. Another one saying Mary was an ordinary woman. Others saying no, Mary was a virgin. So that dispute leads to fragmentation within the church, but most of the church moves to North Africa, the whole of religion, and covers the whole of North Africa, where most of the founding fathers of the church, of the Christian church, come from. Eventually, a Roman emperor called Constantine, he calls the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD and says, from now on, we will teach God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Ghost, and we shall reinforce it with Constantine's armies. But that doesn't unite the church, it leaves it divided until another council, called the Council of Chalcedon, that happens 200 years later. And this council then comes out with a creed of I believe in God the Father, I believe in God the Son. Nevertheless, Arians and other people who didn't believe in what the Council of Nicaea and the Council of Chalcedon has done continue to have a different view of the church. Now, this church then moves from, when Constantine converted, he moved the seat of Christianity from Northeast Africa to Rome. That is why the church is governed from Rome. The first believers of Christianity were in Northeast Africa, in Judea. The first convert of Christianity is an African minister of finance that is detailed out in the Bible, in the book of Acts, chapter 8, verse 26. He was the first convert. He was an Ethiopian finance minister. Then, when Rome takes over the church, it becomes a political church. So the Pope becomes a political leader. And within this realm, you will discover that there were several black popes, including the Pope who introduced Latin as the official language of the Christian church. Now, as to the teachings of Christ and what he had said, there were at the time more than 200 Gospels of Jesus, and these were reduced to 4 at the Council of Nicaea. The others, however, persisted. And even recently, in 1945, in a place called One Kamali, they discovered what was called the Dead Sea Scrolls. I am sure you've heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered by a black Bedouin or a black herdsman who discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls. And in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are supposed to have been hidden from the time of Jesus, they find the Gospels of Thomas, the Gospel of Barnabas, who is supposed to have been Jesus' cousin, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which is a very interesting one. You can go and look at this on the internet. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene says, for example, that Mary Magdalene was a favorite of Jesus, and he used to kiss her regularly on the hair, and then the script is missing there, so we don't know. Did he used to kiss her on the head, on the hip, on the breast, or well, whatever, But that's what it says. When they say Mary Magdalene was the most favorite of Jesus, and he used to kiss her regularly on there we don't know. So you can speculate and find out. Now, by 1086, a pope called Urban III. At that time, Christianity had divided so badly. There were two popes. One ruled from Cluny in France. There was a relationship between kings and the church and the religion, because the kingdoms were using religion to say, God, we are the divine king, and the church was saying, he is the divine king, listen to him. So the king would say, they are the representatives of God, listen to them. So the religion would justify the kingship, and the kingship would justify religion. Whereas the religion was started in Africa. But the people who now take on the religion becomes European for political reasons. But in 1086, the Pope called Urban III launches another religion had come up by that time, which we shall also see, the religion of Islam. And it was mainly a militaristic religion. This one was not saying that, you need to understand God, or we need to explain so that you can listen to him. They were saying, no. There is only one God, Allah. And if you are, either you are with Allah or you are with not. If you are not, then sword be with you. If you are with Allah, peace be with you. If you convert and submit to the will of Allah. So they had taken over a huge section of the world, and they were, they had also taken over Jerusalem, which was now the spiritual center, or which was one of the spiritual homes of Christianity. So this pope called Urban calls all the Christians from Europe. At the time, Europe is dominated by knights. Knights were professional fighters who lived by the sword. If a knight didn't kill 5 people a day, that would be a bad day. If you're a knight, you have to kill about 5 people a day. You couldn't go home and tell your wife, I have not killed anyone today because they ran away. No. The knight will live. Says, wait, Pope Urban. You are killing your brothers. You are killing your sisters. However, it is more saintly and wonderful if you can go to Jerusalem and kill the Muslims who have taken over the holy places and desecrated them. If you do that, then it means your sins will be rescinded. That the sins they have committed will be cancelled, and the sins you are about to commit will also be cancelled, and therefore you will go to heaven. So, hordes of Europeans, thousands of them, led by princes and princesses, moved into Europe first, went into Belgrade, had a dispute over shoes, burned the whole city down. They were wearing, they would wear armor, they put a white gown on top with a cross. Then they went into Constantinople, fought the man who had first of all called Kihura Nkuba, and they continued pillaging, stealing, and killing, and they reached a place called Tel Al-Numan, 1,000 miles north of Jerusalem, ate themselves to extinction in cannibalism. That was the first crusade, started in 10. We hear of crusade. Crusade were murderous, barbarous hordes of Christian savages that moved from the whole of Europe into Judea. But the first crusade never made it. The second crusade was led by a man called Peter the Hermit. And Peter the Hermit took instructions from the goose in Barta. It was the one that directed him on how to go and fight the Muslims. They then came into Jerusalem. That second crusade did reach Jerusalem, and they fought a long war. The crusade started from 1096 to almost 1335. It lasted over 400 years. The Christian Crusade. In one of the Christian Crusades, children of Europe were also mobilized to go and fight the Muslim infidels. However, when they reached the shores of the Mediterranean, the Christian Europeans sold their children to the Muslims, whom they had come to fight.
والخامس